Guys, we'll be starting soon. Please switch on your videos. I really don't want to start calling out names, and trust me, I can because यहाँ पे मेरी WSC की team भी है, मेरी Rotaract की team भी है. So please don't make me start doing that. Would love to see your faces. Would love to interact some more. And there's always the chat box to give your opinions and participate in the discussion. So please do that. Shall we start? Is the live streaming on?
We are live. Yes, we are live. We can start. Sharanya, let's just wait for 3 more minutes. Let's start at 6:05.
No worries.
Let more members join in.
So, are we ready with the stream? A very good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome to all of you. I am Rotaract Saloni Singh, a member of Rotaract Club of Delhi University South Campus. Today's discussion circle on menstrual taboos is being organized under Project AVZA, an initiative of Rotaract DUSC that works towards accessibility of and awareness around health and hygiene. This event is being organized in collaboration with the Women's Studies Center of Jesus and Mary College. Now, over to Anna.
Good evening to one and all present here. I am Anna Matthew of the Women's Studies Center, Jesus and Mary College. WSC aims to provide a safe space for students to engage in discussions on various issues like minority women and discriminated sexuality, public health, gender budgeting, trends in the international and Indian women's movement, campaigns for gender justice, etc., and promote feminist ideas and remove gender binaries and lead societal change through education, awareness, and training. I would like to inform everyone that this event is being live streamed on YouTube on the WSC channel.
Now, we will be presenting a short film that will throw some light upon menstrual stigmas prevalent in today's society.
Yes, girls do susu on it. No, Prabhats to give it to Mama as a return gift. No, are you all mad? It's the girl disease. If you touch it, you could touch somebody else in 10 seconds. Or else you'll get it forever.
Sunny, Do you have something to ask me?
No?
Pakka na? You've not taken anything from my drawer? I gave him a chance.
I don't touch girly things.
अब मम्मी बताएगी गर्ली थिंग्स क्या होती है. Unexpecto Patronum.
मान गया हैरी पॉटर मेरे लिए.
I should feel bad, no? I don't. Boys, noodles.
I think Mama's going mad. Papa! Papa!
So, periods are just a girl's body growing up and preparing to make babies someday. It's a natural thing. Don't overreact. Got it? See what I just did? Period fun. Overreact. Arey, where are you going? I have one more damn good one.
And that's why they say half knowledge is worse than no knowledge at all. And with this, we start with our discussion. So we saw in the video how there are certain stigmas in people's mind regarding periods. And usually till our age, the Gen Z, people were not really comfortable discussing about the same. So that is why this platform today, so that we all can come together, discuss about the issue and not actually make periods a stigma, rather go against it, right? And make periods something that is okay, that is natural, because it is. So here we go.
I think we all can pitch in with our opinions, whether you want to critically analyze the portrayal in the video or you want to talk about the issue that was really, very comically outlined in the video itself. So anything that you want to touch upon, we can take the discussion from there. Anyone's welcome to pitch in.
Hi, I would like to start, and I would like to start by saying that whenever we talk about menstrual health or menstrual stigmas, there is one very cautionary note that we all must take, that that is about the inclusiveness. Like, what happens a lot of times that when we talk about menstrual health and discourses around menstrual health are surrounded around an urban setting, or it targets a group of women who already are entitled and privileged. So at the same time, the same thing of menstrual health or the same thing of menstrual hygiene can mean completely different to a woman of rural India. How? Because it is associated with the complex concept of infertility and how that is treated. So I just feel that when we begin about, and whenever today, like, just as a pitch and note, whenever whenever we look at menstrual health and we look at menstrual awareness, then it should not be centered around a few top section of the women, but it should also reach through women to whom menstrual health means different and perceptions of it are also different.
Agreed. I completely agreed with Srishti, because I remember I read a story somewhere that, and I was very young at that time comparatively, and I read a story where the girl was from a rural background, and usually in rural India there is still this practice is still in existence, where people are girls who are undergoing their menstrual cycle for the month are put up somewhere else, maybe somewhere where the cows are kept and fed. Just imagine. So there, the girl had to use the fodder instead of a sanitary napkin, because they knew nothing about the concept of a sanitary napkin. And this is not something old, this is something very modern. This is in the 2010s. And the girl had to use the fodder as a sanitary napkin so that nothing goes wrong with her clothes and everything, and her clothes don't get stained. As a result, an insect was there in the fodder which the girl couldn't see. She was a 12-year-old girl. The insect entered her uterus and infected the entire area, due to which the entire uterus had to be removed at an age of 12. So this is what the issue is. This is where the awareness stands in our country. And this is what Rotaract and WSC today are here for, to fight against.
Definitely. I think in the video, there is, it's been very well outlined that the awareness about what it is such a taboo sort of discussion that especially is not done with guys at a young age. I got the period talk very early on because my mom wanted me to be ready. But there were even girls who didn't know that this something like this happens, and they were rattled when they were bleeding, and they were like, "There is something wrong with me. I'm dying." That sort of a reaction was very natural at that age. And I talked to some of my friends, even though, sometimes I said, okay, this is not my place. Your mom should talk to you about this. But I had to talk to some people about it. And even I was a young child at the time. Especially in guys, I think you get some guys, if your parents are not, very proactive in having this talk with you, you might have wrong half information. Or I know many people who got this information at a level where you read these in your textbooks, right? So that sort of communication, maybe not opening it just between women and girls, but also to all genders, not even just male, female, but all genders should have this talk within their homes because it's a very natural process. And I loved how funny the video was and how it was tackled in such a fun way that it was like, okay, this is not a big deal. You're making this out to be such a huge deal, but it's not.
I was just listening to Sharanya, and like one thing about video, very interesting, was it that how conveniently the boy relates the entire concept of menstruation with something that is not good. And that kind of tells us about misogyny, that everything that a woman goes through, be it biological, be it completely natural, it has to be associated with this entire concept of hatred. So I mean, that is how subconsciously misogyny shapes our psychologies, our perceptions, that things as trivial as sanitary napkins, that might be very well any other napkin that you use or your handkerchief, but like how that completely gets. So it also requires analysis, and like being that WSC, like one thing that we've been taught is that there are multi causalities of things. So I mean, like, there are things that consciously shape the mind, and you will find the same people growing into men who have consciously or subconsciously perpetuated this whole idea of hate women or hate things associated with women.
I think the whole stigma around menstruation is further enacted of it goes further just on the act of when we buy a sanitary napkin. You see that it's like grabbed. It's kind of something that should be hidden, and that is somewhat. And since it's happening so much in society, and you visit a general store, you visit a dispensary. This is what happens. You will get a sanitary napkin uh, packed in a black polythene or packed in a newspaper and given it to you, and you are told to not to hide, to put it in a bag somewhere and not to display it while taking it back home. And I think that is what it helps. It promotes in internalizing the stigma amongst us ourselves, and we then become very reluctant to talk about it to others, to especially to our male counterparts, to our male friends, or even to our fathers, our cousins, and this is what needs to change. When if we are uncomfortable about talking about periods to our fathers, to our male friends, and it's a very natural process, and when we become uncomfortable talking about it they do not get the knowledge, because we are the one who can help them understand, because they don't know about it, it's not happening with them. And if we are unable to talk about it, we don't get even they don't fully grasp the concept, and they cannot add in what they think about it.
Definitely, I agree with what Anna is saying, because it's not just, the opposite gender who's hushing it down, but we ourselves are hushing this topic down and making it so sort of difficult to talk about. Because I have never had a problem talking about, my periods with my father or with my friends. Rather, I would say that when we used to, just hide the pad when we are going to the washroom in school, your teacher would actually say that, okay, please put this in your pocket or get something to, cover this up, and don't just hold it in front of people in the corridor and stuff like that. It'll more likely come from a woman, which is really, shocking to me in some situations, in some aspects. And it's not a big deal. Everyone can talk about it. Everyone can touch it. It's not a like an untouchable thing. My friend has bought a pack of pads for me. What's the big deal in that?
That actually reminds me of this. We have this narrative now that men or our male friends should not touch their female friend's bag because they don't know if they come across a pad. And it's usually frowned upon when we want something from our friends. They just go and tell us, you can take it from our bag. But when we say the same thing to our male friends, they're like, no, I don't want to, I don't want to go through your bag. I don't know what I will find. And it's also usually very much frowned upon, and I have no idea why.
I think some of the guys can also comment. Guys, you're most welcome. This is not just a women's discussion. You guys can completely pitch in. It's completely like fine.
Okay. What I would like to say is that I really like the way that in this video, when I came across it, I thought that the way they have like mentioned something as simple as a sanitary pad. She's used it everywhere, and the woman, the way she's just using it as a not she's using it as a not even a trick. She's not like deceiving her son, but she's using it as a way to spread awareness and also educate him that okay, this is not a bad thing to touch. You're not going to get any diseases if you touch this. And so I feel the way she's handled it with like that comic relief is really good. I mean, most people would just frown upon even when they see this video, let alone touching the pad. When they see this video, they'll be like, okay, what is happening in this video? But I mean, it's just shown beautifully. So I like the way that they've interwoven the concept of menstrual hygiene with comic relief. So yeah.
Like I remember one of the events that we had in WSC was the screening of the movie Great Indian Kitchen. Now what happens in the movie is at the last the woman finally protests against, because at the same time this entire menstrual taboo, it's not only about men not respecting women's boundaries or that angle, but there's an additional angle to it, which is like women themselves being secluded from public spaces. For example, we have seen women not being allowed to go into kitchens, women being not allowed to go into places of worship. So this entire thing or this entire menstrual taboo is not only hampering relationship of men and women, but also women's own, like it's restricting their spaces.
True. And it's not a bad thing, because as she ends in the end, she says that it's a girl's body maturing up so that she can have babies in the future, right? So it's not a bad thing. It's in turn actually a very good thing, because it is what gives you babies. Like every person wants to have, usually we see in our dramas that, we want grandkids. You know how Indian dramas go around this, things like this, right? So that is something very celebrated when a woman actually gives birth. But the thing that leads to her being able to give birth is not. So the question comes to our brain is why? Because it's as natural as anything else.
I'd also like to pitch in here with the fact that, when we're talking about, menstruation and, as, Shrishti also mentioned that it's also about reclaiming our own spaces, and how in Great Indian Kitchen, we see that, women, the actress there, she was not just allowed to enter in the kitchen, but, it was also surrounded with the fact that about the Sabrimala case, which has been going around for years, and, women are trying to claim their spaces in something temples, because again it's a sacred space, and a menstruating woman is not a sacred woman per se, and, a lot of impurity is attached to it. So it's not just misogyny attached to a woman who is menstruating, but it also about how patriarchy has been shaped in our lives, that how certain families are so orthodox about it. They're so they don't want to start this conversation. And as I think it was also mentioned in the video that showed that start the bloody conversation. So we need to have that conversation more often, not just with our family members, but forums like these. Again, we are a privileged bunch of kids who are having this conversation. But when we talk as Srishti also mentioned, that when we're talking about rural areas, it's also hushed under the wraps. The way we get our sanitary napkins in some packages and packs. So those conversation even in rural areas is hushed under wraps. So I think when we're talking about menstruation, it's not just about us as privileged women talking about it, but it's also about those who don't have access to these conversation. I would literally label it these conversation, because that's how these conversations are addressed in rural areas. And I think period the end of sentence was an eye opener for people who are in rural areas, because the way the movie has been filmed, it has very nicely portrayed the problems that women in rural areas face while talking about menstruation in general.
I think definitely, especially when you said that we need to have the bloody conversation is not just a thing that is a one-on-one thing. But I loved how in this video the dad also got in on it, and it was a super sort of fun thing that ways. But yes, we will be having another video after this. I would have loved to watch period the end of discussion. I've end of sentence. I've heard so much about it, but that has already been done, and that's why we didn't want to touch upon that. But we do have another video which is also a skit format, which also outlines these sort of situations in this way. Casey, you're saying something? You're on mute. Okay, so yeah, I think over to Saloni now, since we have another half an hour of discussion left. We'll wrap up this one. If anyone has anything else to add for this video in particular.
I'd also say one more thing before we move on to the next video. I think it's also very important when we're talking about menstruation to obviously talk about trans community, because now since we are talking about menstruation, I think let's also have a little discussion around it, because a lot of people just assume that it's just women who go through menstruation, but it's also the trans community. And I think we need to have more open and honest conversation about this, and not just talking about women in general, that okay, women. So because I think now it's not just a women's issue, I think it's the issue of everyone. So a more open and honest conversation is something which is needed.
Anna, over to you.
To move this session forward, we have another video. So let's just see that. It's on, this video showcases, is basically on menstrual stereotypes. So if we can have that video.
I think there's some technical glitch. Bhumika, you're not able to share?
No issues. I'll do it.
Okay, great.
I'm doing.
Oh. And press the bell icon to never miss a
पवी, आज मैं डांस कंपटीशन में नहीं आ पाऊंगी। नहीं यार, अब तो बैंडेज भी नहीं लग रहा। अब बस एक ही ऑप्शन है, इसे तो सील करना पड़ेगा। हाँ मम्मी, आ रही हूँ।
कर बेटा, मंदिर जाकर भगवान जी से फर्स्ट प्राइज भी मांगना है ना, है?
ममता, अगर उनसे सब कुछ मांगना है तो नमक मांग लो, पोहे बिल्कुल फीके।
मम्मी जी, भगवान जी के पास ना नमक नहीं बूंदी मिलती है, वो भी सिर्फ 11:30। हाय राम कृष्णा।
गुड मॉर्निंग ममता। अरे वो पोहे में नमक।
चुपचाप खा लो और नहा लो, आधे घंटे में निकलना है।
तो पीरियड्स आ गए इनके।
ऋषा जल्दी कर, पापा की मेहंदी भी सूख गई है।
हाँ मम्मी। अभी व्हाट इफ मेरे बॉडी का सारा खून खाली हो रहा है? आई थिंक yesterday was my last day in school. So you need to know this. रोहन डांस प्रैक्टिस देखने तेरे लिए नहीं मेरे लिए आता है। हेलो हेलो काट दिया।
ऋषा
हाँ मम्मी आई। मम्मी मम्मी मेरी जान बचा लो, खून रुक ही नहीं रहा, मुझे इतनी जल्दी नहीं मरना।
क्या बकवास करी, क्या कह रही है तू?
अरे सुना तुमने, हमारे कृष्ण के पीरियड्स आ गए।
अरे
हाँ अभी।
दादी पीरियड्स तो मैथ्स और साइंस ही होता है, ये कैसा पीरियड है?
अरे बेटा ये तुम्हारे बॉडी का पीरियड है, इसका मतलब ये है कि अब तुम बड़ी हो रही हो।
नहीं मुझे और हाइट नहीं बढ़ानी, रोहन ऑलरेडी मुझसे 1 इंच छोटा है।
अरे नहीं, अब तुम्हारी हाइट नहीं बढ़ेगी, अब तुम्हारा, अब ये समझ लो कि तुम्हारे अब स्पोर्ट्स ब्रा पहनने के दिन गए। अब तो तुम लेस अंडरवायर।
ऋषा बेटा, ऋषा जा जल्दी से पहन जा।
बहू सन 1920 से फोन आया था, वो तुम्हें वहां वापस बुला रहे हैं। मेरे पास फर्स्ट पीरियड किट है। ये मैंने देखते ही कृषा के लिए खरीद लिया था, सोचा ना जाने कब मौसम बदल जाए, और देखो आज हो गई बारिश।
किसी नॉनवेज बातें करने लगी हाँ मम्मी जी। हमारा देखो। हाँ हेलो, मैं होल्ड कर रही हूँ। या
दादी मेरे पेट में बहुत दर्द हो रहा है।
अरे बेटा सुनो, एक काम करो, ये जो है ये पहन लो, ठीक है? और देखो इस बुकलेट में दिखाया है कैसे पहनते हैं। जाओ ये पहनो और जल्दी से वापस आ जाओ चेंज करके, हमको बाहर जाना है। जाओ।
ये एड में तो इंक करता है।
हाँ कोटिजा मैम, गुड मॉर्निंग, वेरी गुड मॉर्निंग जी। मैं कृषा की मम्मी बोल रही हूँ। नहीं 84% वाली नहीं, 84.5% वाली। या अच्छा, क्या है ना कि कृषा कांट कम फॉर द डांस कंपटीशन। नहीं, शी हैज स्टार्टेड हर मेंसेस।
ममता फोन नीचे रखो।
एक्चुअली क्या है ना, मेरी सास आई ना,
फोन नीचे रखो।
फोन करती
अभी
क्या है मम्मी जी?
अरे तुमने मना कर दिया। हाँ एक बार उससे पूछ तो लेती, वो बेचारी तो नींद में अपने स्टेप्स रिवाइज कर रही है, स्लीप डांस करते करते सुनीता के यहाँ पहुंच गए, और तुम हो मना कर दिया।
मम्मी जी उसके वो दिन आए हुए हैं, वो दिन का मतलब आप समझती हैं? अभी वो मंदिर जाएगी, पौधे चूल्हे फूल मुरझा जाएंगे, स्टेज पे ऊंच नीच हो गई। अरे स्टेज लग गया तो क्या करेंगे? कैसे जा सकते हैं हम लोग? नहीं हम नहीं जा रहे, बस खत्म।
हम नहीं जा रहे हैं क्या?
नहीं।
ठीक है फिर मैं मूंछों में मेहंदी नहीं लगाऊंगा।
हाँ
सुनील हम जा रहे हैं, और तुम सिर्फ मूंछों में नहीं अपने आईब्रोज में भी मेहंदी लगाओगे। जाओ।
माता जी को क्या हुआ? इनके तो होते भी नहीं है।
और मैडम ये क्या, वो दिन क्या लगा रखा है? अरे लड़की को पीरियड्स आए हैं, नॉर्मल है, हर औरत को होता है।
आपको एक आइडिया दूं? आप जो 4 दिन के लिए आई है ना, इनको 2 बातें सुनाइए और उसको 2 कहानियां। और
तुमने बड़े अपने माँ का फर्ज निभा लिया, उस बेचारी को बताया भी नहीं कि पीरियड्स होते क्या, अब सब मुझे समझाना पड़ेगा उसे। अरे किशोर बेटा,
मुझे थोड़ी देर सिट डाउन करना है, मेरा पेट।
अरे रे रुक जा। ये अच्छा यहाँ बैठ जा, ठीक है? अब तुम यहीं बैठी रहना, ठीक है? और देख रसोई में तो बिल्कुल भी मत जाना, और अगर वॉशरूम यूज करना है ना तो बाहर आना।
सठिया गई है क्या तू?
क्यों?
हाँ क्या कर रही है तू? चलो उठो।
क्या कर रही हैं आप?
तुम्हें जहाँ बैठना है, जैसे बैठना है बैठो, चलो बैठो वहां पे बैठो।
नहीं बिल्कुल नहीं यहाँ बैठेगी। मेरी माँ ने जो हमें सिखाया मैं वैसे।
तुम्हारी माँ ने अगर तुम्हें यही गलत सलत सिखाया था तो उनसे जाके बदला लो ना।
मेरे संस्कार मेरे बच्चे में आएंगे कि आपके संस्कार आएंगे?
अरे संस्कार की बात करके अंधश्रद्धा है सारी, तुम्हें समझ में नहीं आता है?
मैं ऐसे ही करते माँ जी, प्लीज स्टॉप इट।
इज दिस अ फिश मार्केट? मुझे समझ में नहीं आ रहा है यहाँ पर हो क्या रहा है। ऐसा लग रहा है मेरा इनसाइड आउटसाइड जा रहा है। मेरा सर राउंड जा रहा है, मुझे रोना भी आ रहा है। नहीं एक्चुअली ना मुझे बहुत सारी चॉकलेट्स खानी, बहुत सारी।
लो अब तो माता भी आ गई, वही जिसे आप पीएमएस कहती हैं।
क्या मुझे 2 बीमारी है?
अरे बेटा ये बीमारी नहीं है, पीएमएस यानी प्री मेंस्ट्रुअल सिंड्रोम, जो पीरियड्स के पहले होता है।
हाँ पता है।
और पीरियड्स के दौरान ना बेटा मूड स्विंग्स होते हैं।
पर ये सब मेरे साथ ही क्यों?
अरे बेटा औरतों को बहुत सहन करना पड़ता है। सीता मैया ने कितना जब
बस सुनो बेटा, नेचर ने ना औरतों को बहुत स्ट्रांग बनाया है और उसने औरतों को रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी दी है बच्चे पैदा करने के लिए। बच्चे पैदा करने के लिए एग्स चाहिए होते हैं।
क्या अब मैं मुर्गी बन गई हूँ? नहीं चाहिए मुझे ऐसी शक्ति, नहीं करने मुझे ऐसे बच्चे पैदा, और नहीं बनना मुझे शक्तिमान।
चुप चुप बोल, अपनी मम्मी को नानी नहीं बनाएगी।
अरे एक मिनट यार, ना चुप कर। क्या है कि नेचर अंडे बना के रख देता है। जैसे तुम्हारी माँ रोज सुबह ये फीके पोहे बना के रख देती है। खाना नहीं खाना वो हमारे ऊपर है। मैं तो खाती नहीं, देखो वहां धरे पड़े हुए हैं।
मैं तो कल से बनाऊंगी नहीं, मन आए खाओ नहीं तो नहीं खाओ, भूखे मरो।
हाँ, ये क्या जबरदस्ती है? अगर अंडे चाहिए होते तो बाजार से ही खरीद लेते।
अरे बेटा, तुम्हारे बॉडी में ना अभी अभी चेंजेस हो रहे हैं, थोड़े दिनों के बाद तुम्हें आदत सी पड़ जाएगी।
ये फिर से होगा?
हाँ बेटा, तभी तो इन्हें मंथलीज कहा जाता है। हर महीने 6-7 दिन के लिए आएंगे और फिर चले जाएंगे, खत्म।
एक मिनट, ये आप दोनों को पता था और आप मुझे अब बता रही हो? दादी, आपने मुझसे सीक्रेट रखा।
देखा दादी कैसी है?
अरे
चलो मैं रेडी हो गया, निकले।
कोई कहीं नहीं जाने वाला, मैं पहले बोल रही हूँ।
पापा, अब मुझे पीरियड हो गए, मुझे नहीं चाहिए।
ओ तेरे पीरियड्स। अरे कोई बात नहीं बेटा, हम रास्ते में स्कूल चलते हुए आइसक्रीम ले लेंगे।
ये सब क्या बात कर रहे हो उसे? मैंने तुमसे कहा था अंदर जाकर बैठो, कमरे से बाहर नहीं निकलोगी। जाओ अंदर जाओ, इसको इस हालत में कहीं नहीं लेके जाओगे।
अरे पर मुझे जाना तो पड़ेगा
ना। क्यों?
अरे वरना वो पवी सेंटर पोजीशन ले लेगी और ये वाला स्टेप तो वो कभी ढंग से नहीं करती है।
तुम पे पाप चढ़ेगा, खराब डांस के लिए भी और इसके ले जाने के लिए भी।
सुनील बेटा, 70 साल की हो गई हूँ। पता नहीं ऊपर वाला मुझे कब बुला ले। जिंदगी में एक बार, सिर्फ एक बार मैं कृषा का डांस परफॉर्मेंस देखना चाहती थी। पता नहीं अब वो मेरे नसीब में लिखा भी है या नहीं।
तू गाड़ी में बैठ, मैं दादी को लेके
मैं
बिना कैसी बातें करते हैं। अभी तो आपको कृषा का बहुत डांस देखना है, चलिए।
हाँ बेटा,
जाओ जाओ, पूरे मोहल्ले को साथ में ले जाओ, लेकिन याद रखना कि अगर वहां पे कोई ऊंच नीच हुई तो मेरे पास रोते हुए मत आना। मैं क्या करूँगी? मैं भी आ रही हूँ, रुको मैं चप्पल बदल रही हूँ, मेरी चप्पल।
प्लीज इस वीडियो को लाइक कीजिए।
And that's why they say stereotypes are get no results, actions do. So it's our chance to get into action, and the floor is again all yours.
I think what I liked a lot about this video is the fact that it's not the 70-year-old grandmother who is holding the stereotype. When we talk about menstrual stereotype, we always think about the older generation, probably our parents' generation, most definitely our grandparents' generation. But in this skit, it was not that. It was the grandmother who was more open about menstruation and the taboos about it. And the mother was the one who did not wish to talk about it and treated menstrual stereotypes as if they were truths. And I think that is a very progressive thing to that they have displayed. It's that stereotypes is when you have a stereotype about menstruation, it's not related to a generation. It's just how your thought process work and how what you have been given. Even the father himself did not have these stereotypes. He was also more open about the conversation about periods as compared to the mother. And I think that is what we need to see is that we may be given stereotypes. It does pass on from generation, just as the mother said that my mother told me has taught me all of this, and I will teach my child. But it's up to us that we break these stereotypes. That if we think that this is a wrong thought process, that we break that thought process and go in a new direction, something which is not discriminatory, something which actually does make sense. And
Another thing I would like to point out from the video is, like Anna said, the father is like still more accepting than the mother about the same. But one fact that the father has got wrong is that women only get frustrated while they're on their menstrual cycle. That's not true, guys. Women have the right to be frustrated at any point at their time. Even if they've reached the stage of menopause, they can get frustrated, they can get opinionated. It's not always that the woman is angry, so she's on a period. So let's just get that straight.
Yeah, that's so.
And like Saloni said, I really agree because these days we hear so many men, especially whenever we're irritated or frustrated or we have like too many opinions on one thing, they're always like, periods aane wale kya tere or something like that. So it's so common, and I really felt like this video was so realistic in terms of like what the dad said. And like Anna said, I really noticed that because it's usually the grandmoms who usually show these stereotypes wali baatein and not the mother. The mother is more supportive and she's always like taking care of her child. Instead, in this video, the mother was more concerned about babies and not the period aspect of it. Like when the grandmom said that baby is killer, so the mom was like, "मुझे बच्चे नहीं देगी, तू मुझे नानी नहीं बनाएगी." So that was like a really concerning topic. Like you don't really care about your daughter when she's on her periods, but you just that's a whole process, you went through it. And if her mom did that, maybe she felt some guilt. She should have felt some guilt, that she'd be a better mom than hers. So I mean, it was on her. Like she could have changed that thing that's been going on since generations, but she chose not to. So I think it was like a very realistic video.
Okay, I'm personally
So
really.
hi everyone.
Yeah, Sanand, please go ahead.
So I'm sharing a little my experience. Like when we were like the first time in the bio, like this topic was introduced, the whole class was like boys. Oh. So but I was like personally I was unaware about it. So मैं joke समझ नहीं पाया कि हो क्या रहा था. Teacher was not also explaining कि boys इतना शोर समझा रहा है regarding that topic. So I like came back home. तो मैंने मदर से पूछा तो उन्होंने एक लेट नाइट शी इज लाइक ऑल्सो टीचर तो उन्होंने को प्रॉपर डायग्राम एक्सप्लेन किया कि दिस इज अ जनरल थिंग एंड देन यू शुड बी ऑल्सो अवेयर ऑफ दिस बिकॉज आपके फ्रेंड्स होंगे जिसके लिए आपको उनकी हेल्प करनी चाहिए फुल टाइम आपको कुछ भी इसमें छी गंदा कुछ भी नहीं होता जैसे बॉयज ने पूरी क्लास में र्यूमर फैला दिया था तो आई लाइक थॉट लाइक ये हाँ ये चीज अच्छी है तो मेरे को जैसे मैं एजुकेट हुआ तो मेरा पर्सपेक्टिव यही है कि आज का जनरेशन भी एजुकेट होने चाहिए इस टॉपिक पे इनफैक्ट इन द रूरल एरिया तो मैं पर्सनली जब जाता हूँ उनको एजुकेट करने अगर मैं अपने हाथ से हैंड ओवर फैक्ट करता हूँ तो वो बोलते हैं कि बॉय क्यों कर रहा है अभी ये स्टीरियोटाइपिंग है कि एक बॉय एक फीमेल की हेल्प क्यों करना चाहता है कि या तो वो गंदा है या तो वो छेड़ रहा है उसको तो ये बहुत गलत पॉइंट है क्योंकि रूरल एरिया में भी ऐसे होता है इनफैक्ट रूरल अर्बन एरिया में भी होता है कि गर्ल्स कई पॉइंट पे बोलती है कि जिनको भी अनअवेयर है कि उनकी प्रॉब्लम हमें दिख गई बाकी छेड़ रहे बॉयज बट मेरे हमारे जो नॉलेजेबल पर्सन है उनको उनके पर्सपेक्टिव से भी सोचना चाहिए कि हमें गलत वे से देख लिया जाता है जो भी हेल्प करना चाहता है आई गेस ये चीज चेंज होनी चाहिए तो हमने और इनफैक्ट ये जो वीडियोज है ये अभी एट प्रेजेंट मेरे ड्राइंग रूम में प्ले हो रही है लाइक तो मेरी मेड उसकी डॉटर्स बैठी हुई है तो वो सब समझ गए कि मैंने क्यों बोलता हूँ कि आप गलत नहीं करते हो आई एम वेरी थैंकफुल टू दिस ग्रुप तो किसी मैं अगर नहीं समझा पाया तो कोई आप सबसे समझ पाएंगे लेकिन वो समझ पाएंगे
I completely agree with Sanand. Actually, some boys are really more aware of it. I had a classmate. So she was on her periods, and unfortunately, like it's not unfortunate, but no one is comfortable with staining of skirts, right? Because in schools, it's a big mess. Because they don't offer you skirts, everyone gets to judge you. I don't know why, but everyone has to judge that girl whose skirt is stained. It's okay, like a paint falls or water falls. It's just that. It's similar, but no. So she herself wasn't very comfortable with the idea of staining, which the society has brought on her. So she didn't realize well her classes. So there was and none of us noticed. So there was this guy who noticed us. He was one of our friends, and he was sitting at the back seat. He slowly, because he knew if he'll say that loudly, maybe the girl, unfortunately, towards the sigmas, she'll not feel comfortable. He slowly came up to one of her friends, and he didn't even go directly because again, uncomfortable situations. He came up to one of her friends and he told her that what, just please tell her that her skirt has stain and if she can go and change. So thankfully that otherwise it could have turned into a major staining rather than a minor staining. that helped a lot, and the girl was really thankful. So yes, there are a lot of guys who are more acceptable to the fact, and I'm like hats off to them and their families who made them open to so open in a society like us to the idea of periods.
For sure, especially like in junior school, even like we saw in the previous video that the guys were talking amongst themselves. Even one guy was giving the other some wrong information. I remember we had like the period talk for all the girls. There was a huge seminar in the sports field, and a person, a lady, was talking on stage, and guys weren't allowed to enter that area when we were having that talk. So there was a natural sort of curiosity. Guys wanted to listen in. They wanted to kind of eavesdrop about what's going on, and then they were later on they came up to us and told us, okay, what was happening, what's the secret that you're not telling us. So it's such like a hush hush thing even amongst the younger crowd, that they grew up believing this is the thing. And I love the personal choice that the skit writers made in this, about not making the grandmother the one who was stereotypical, and rather the mom, so that you don't have age is not like a bahana. It's not an excuse to have a certain point of view. It's just how you choose to break the cycle. Maybe even the grandmother's mother, she must come from a very old fashioned, or that sort of backward thought process, but she might have broken the cycle in her thing. And that's why the guy also, the father, even though he had some gaps in his information about, like Saloni mentioned, the okay, now is she on her period, that sort of comment, but he was aware it wasn't a dirty or a wrong kind of thing for him. So that's it. The grandmother made a decision to break that cycle, and maybe now the mother also gets on board with it, and then she doesn't teach her daughter that it's a stigma or it's a taboo to have this or to talk about this. So I really like the choices made in the skit by the writers, that they went with a non sort of explored route, and not going with, okay, the grandmother is saying this and the mom is protecting her child. Not that. Also, we are also having to think more and discuss more.
Yeah, and another thing I noticed was that the way Sharanya mentioned that this incident in her school, I feel ऐसा भी बहुत schools में होता है कि they teach you a 9th या 10th में जो भी reproduction का chapter आता है, and then they completely, when it comes to the period talk, I feel it depends कि how your science teacher is, but some science teachers just skip over that topic, or just like finish it in like 2 seconds. They'll just be like हाँ ठीक है ये होता है, ये वो होता है, and and it's a joke in the class, like all the people, all the children, they're laughing. So I feel that is where it starts. The root cause is there, that even in our schools, in our textbooks, in our education system, it's not inculcated properly. Because even menstrual hygiene is such an important topic that needs to be inculcated into mainstream classrooms. So yeah.
Agreed with Kesar, because this is something that I actually discussed with my parents. That why, like, was it like, I heard it somewhere and I asked them, was it like this? So they said this is something that disappoints us at this stage, because, and my mother told me the reason that the government actually imbibed this into our syllabus was to tell people about what periods are, so that people have the right information. Because what the country had noticed was people didn't have the right information, first of all, because everyone was apprehensive of telling the boys of what periods is. And then they used to go to different means and get half information, which was no good, to be very honest, because then they thought of it as diseases and not something good. So that is one of the reasons it was actually added into the syllabus, and I believe skipping that part is not really helpful for the society.
And if you could read out the message in the chat box.
Yes, so Anahita, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, says that a classmate of mine once saw that someone had sat on his chair and had stained it, and his friends were like, ew, but then he told his friends not to be like that, and that this is normal, and took a paper and kept it over it, and told one of his girlfriends, and it got it clean. I honestly felt really proud, because when we were younger, the boys used to really make the girls feel uncomfortable. I mean, that's totally true. And when you start getting uncomfortable in a place like your school, and it's one of the places where you are supposed to feel comfortable, just like your house. If you start feeling uncomfortable in your school because of 50% of the population of school, then it becomes very difficult for the person.
So even personally, I wouldn't sing praises of my school, but yes, they did make that provision that there were skirts available in the clinic. That if you do stain it, you can go and get one, change and wash it and get it like the next day and return it. And those were like free size skirts with a lot of hoops, so that everyone can sort of get it if they need it. So that was like a decision made at the institutional level. So it's that there's a personal thing. There's also like a institution, government, society, that sort of level that you can bring change on. But even like my teacher during that chapter in science, she was very clear. She was like, okay, this is a disclaimer. Probably a lot of you skipped through the end of the book and just read through this chapter to know what's going on. But I'm going to be very clear. No one will laugh in my class. This is a serious topic, and it's a very general thing that happens. It's a very natural thing that we're going to talk about. So if anyone laughs, I'm going to throw you out. And she took her time with that chapter, to be very honest, and I'm really thankful to her for that.
We have another comment on the chat box. Divya says, I remember in school, if a girl would get her period and didn't have a pad, they would go to the infirmary and get subjected to judgmental looks and verbal taunts because the nurses thought most of them were faking having cramps because they wanted to bunk classes. Internalized misogyny runs veins deep in our culture. That is very true. When a girl complains about having cramps, and it's for some girls, the cramps are horrible. You cannot get up from your place. You cannot get up from your bed. If you stand in one place, and it's very difficult for you to go ahead with your days. And some people just look at you as if you're overreacting. I don't know, did I see this incident somewhere or read this incident somewhere or heard about it? When a woman, I think most of us know this deal. When a woman goes to a hospital complaining about period cramps, the doctors and the nurses are like, you just have to power through it, and that you are acting and you're just exaggerating your pain. It's not that much. Whereas when a man goes with even just a small pain, which may be easily manageable, he is immediately given treatment. Whereas the woman has to suffer when a simple painkiller would help her a lot.
Very true. I think even people have different pain tolerances, and also period cramps differ from person to person. I know people who don't have cramps at all, and I'm like, you are the luckiest person in the world, and God loves you. But I get so bad, like I can't move for 2 days. I'm in my bed. Don't tell me to work anything. I can't function. So I'm like, you are lucky. Okay, you're one of those people. That's fine. And for someone, even a woman or another, any other gender, who doesn't menstruate, to underestimate that pain is sort of not fair. And all of these period simulators, those cramp simulators that come, I've heard they're really inaccurate. But okay, if you guys want to go and try that, that's also an option. But yeah, I think that these kind of things are so normalized that a lot of people can't fathom what certain people go through. They might have other conditions like PCOS, that sort of thing, or other conditions that make their problems or their pain a little more severe than you could even imagine as a woman. So definitely, I think we should be sensitive towards people's personal experiences, because they might not all be the same. And even that narrative about okay, you have PCOS, you miss your period for so long, you're so lucky you don't have to deal with it. But that's not how it works. It's not good for the body. Even she is maybe not happy with it. It affects a lot of factors. So having that sort of a point of view when you are not in the situation is not always the way to go.
Yes, that's completely true. Even I think for some people who are suffering from PCOS, even if they don't get the periods, they do get the symptoms. They do feel the cramps. They do have the mood swings, and that is, I think, something which makes it worse. That you are suffering from symptoms, but it's just not happening. The period's just not happening, and that further causes more health problems.
Yes, but actually, because in PCOS, the dead tissue is actually not coming out of the body. It is storing itself within the body, which is worse off for a woman. So PCOS is a disease. it's actually it's something that should be worked for, because a lot of girls, I personally didn't know much about PCOS. I got to know about it much later due to a connection that I have. She is suffering through PCOS too. So yes, I would like, it's something that a girl should not have, trust me. And this is something that the youth and us, we should work on.
And it is also something which is frowned upon. When somebody says that they have PCOS, the first comment or one of the comments they get is that it's because of your lifestyle. Change your lifestyle and it will get better. Sometimes people don't have a choice. They have to follow through a lifestyle because of the hectic schedule. And that is why, yes, it is a lifestyle disease, but sometimes people cannot do much to change their lifestyle. And that has to be taken into consideration. But when somebody says they have PCOS, they are frowned upon. They are told that you don't exercise much, you don't eat healthy, you don't do take the necessary steps, and that is something we have to change.
True. And things like this, a girl doesn't usually get to know at an earlier stage until and unless she's actually getting it checked. So these things lead to so many hormonal changes that it leads to things like facial hairs, bad cramps, like we also mentioned. But the issue is, in our society, even girls with facial hairs are made fun of, to be very, very honest. I've seen that happen in front of my own eyes, which is not fair, because the girl you're making fun of, you don't really know what she's going through mentally and physically. And the worst of is the mental pressure that's put on her because of the society and because all of the judgments that are being passed, that like you never know what the next step that the girl could take, to be very, very honest, because at that time of your monthlies, you really don't know what kind of a state a girl could be in, to be very honest.
I think with regard to the video which we just saw, the fact that nobody informed the girl about what periods are and what she should expect is also something. I think somebody had talked about it. She was scared. She thought that she's going to die because the bleeding is not stopped. She's continuously bleeding, and that is, I think, we have to start educating everyone about what periods are from an early stage, because when you get it and you don't know about it, it's such a shock that you don't know, and you sometimes may feel uncomfortable talking to your parents about it. And if you get uncomfortable talking to your parents about it the first time you get periods, you don't, then what other means would you about it? And that can also lead to them going through very suspicious sites to understand what is happening with them.
And look what it actually made the girl do. It made her lose a friend because she got very honest because she thought she was dying. So don't do that. Don't make girls lose their friends. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like when I got my first periods, none of no teacher in our school told us about it, and I went up to my mom, and her first comment was that like your school didn't teach you about this. And I think parents should know that it's not just the school's responsibility to teach the girls about this, and it's their parents as well, because obviously girls would be more comfortable talking to her mother about this. And also one more point, that when her grandmother had given her the pad, the girl the pad, she was like, "Oh my god, I saw this in an ad, and they use ink on the pad to explain that, right?" So even I noticed that, and I was like, that's kind of bad, because we are using water or ink to show that the pad can hold this much weight and this much quantity and stuff, and this could give a wrong idea to the girls who have not gotten it yet. So I really think that we should change that.
Agreed. I saw it. I really appreciate this change in the Indian media, because now there's one brand which is actually advertising it with red color to show that it is actually period blood. So I really appreciated that ad. I saw it when I was in 11th or 10th or 11th, and I really appreciated the shift that the Indian media is facing and is letting people know about periods.
I think we've had enough of those white pants, girl doing sports. Okay, yeah, I'm on my period and I can wear white and all of that. I think that needs to really go now.
I'd like to add something to that point where we were discussing how if a woman complains too much about her period, everyone around her just tells her to stop overreacting. So I have this friend. So she used to get really, really bad cramps, like deadly cramps, and she obviously used to complain about them that this is getting too much. And then they even went to a doctor. So that was so the doctor also told her to, you just have to power through it. Every girl goes through these kind of things, and you're not the only one going through it. And then a lot of people didn't understand also, and then they made all these sort of comments. And a few weeks later, or I think a month later or something, she did get diagnosed with endometriosis. So this is a very, very big concern here, when a person doesn't believe a girl when she's actually complaining, and then you're in turn you're telling her to be strong about it, that everyone goes through it. But then this really needs to come in light that not everyone has the same experience with it, and everyone has a right to tell that what they're feeling, and you need to acknowledge it, that there are differences in this as well, and the differences need to be acknowledged here. Because I saw her and I was like, yeah, this is not supposed to be that bad. And anyone who believes that periods are supposed to be so bad, because this is also quite generalized, because if somebody complains too much about a period, then the other person says, yeah, ye to hota hi hai, 5-6 din we have to bear it, ye to hota hi hai. But then sometimes the thing goes undiagnosed. Something might be wrong there, and period cramps are not supposed to be so deadly that you can't even move from your bed. I mean, the other person needs to acknowledge that yes, sometimes a person can have worse periods than somebody else, and you just can't tell them to, it's okay, you need to move on with life. Because I saw a lot of people making comments like that to her, that you still need to live your life, you can't stop your life because of periods, because every girl goes through it. So that concept is very harming in a lot of ways.
Actually, that was what I liked about the video also, because the mother was going to say that this is something, and ladies have to suffer a lot. And, she was starting with all that, and the other said, just stop it right there, I have enough of you. Because it's true, like, don't put it in the girl's mind from an age of 11 or 12 that, you need to suffer with it throughout your life. Don't make it more of a hell for her. So, yeah, that was something I really liked about the video.
And I don't understand this कि वो सबको होता है वाला narrative, because literally there are diseases that are so common. Okay, COVID तो आजकल सबको हो रहा है, तुम्हें जरूरत ही नहीं है कोई दवाई की, तुम जाओ कोई बात नहीं, सबको हो रहा है COVID. That doesn't make any sense. If someone has a problem, they are having a problem. You can't discount it on account of so many people are having that problem. You have to treat that person with that particular problem. And I completely agreed with Rihanna. That's what another point I made, that it's not the same experience for everyone. You don't know what someone is going through. And those who don't have period cramps, really, God loves you. But, not everyone is in that same situation. So, yeah, that is definitely even that sort of gap within women. I wouldn't even menstruators who are facing the similar thing, they might not be facing the same thing. So it's not just 7 o'clock. It's not just a gap between genders, but even within the same gender.
I just like to pitch in one point here. When we're talking about these advertisements and all these things, we also need to understand, where these advertisements are coming from. They're coming from people who are very liberal in their approach. So it's a very liberal ideology that is, and it's all these advertisements, they obviously have a huge role in the identity politics that is present. So whatever these advertisements are, they're not something which a conservative or someone who thinks a little radically would approach a problem. I think I would say, at least a women's studies center, that we are a very radical unit of JMC, and so we would not approach any problem with a very liberal ideologies. But these advertisements, they have a very liberal sort of an ideology when they approach a problem. So the way they have a take on menstruation, that may not be the take that I would personally have, because when they are talking about menstruation, it's a very I would say it's a very niche where they're coming from, niche idea that they're coming from. Because again, a lot of these advertisements, they're just talking about women of urban areas. And again, this topic of women in rural areas, they are secluded. So again, it's a very class divided approach and very liberal approach that these advertisements have. Along with that, I would also like to pitch in one more point, that within the video itself, we see that in a family itself, there are two women, one who is progressive and one who is regressive. So, I think this is something which we might all agree on, that, within family also you'll have some members who are aggressive in their approach and, who are progressive in their approach. And I think that's the balance I think we need in a family as well. Someone who is progressive and someone who is regressive. So obviously you need a progressive someone to, just shut the regressive someone, because I think that is something which is needed.
All right. So with that, guys, we have come to the end of the discussion today. Thank you, everyone, for making this an interactive event. It was really interesting to hear your experiences and thoughts. We would love to express our gratitude to WSC for collaborating with us. A shout out to all the participants and the people watching on YouTube. You have been an amazing audience. Thank you.